Hello, this is Jon Speelman with the video version of my latest column for Chess Space. It's number 170, and after a fistful of chestnuts, it was inevitable that we'd move to a few chestnuts more. Though, as I point out, I don't particularly like the genre of, what have I called it? Occidental cinematographic pasta, which you can work out what that is, I guess. And yes, we are recording, which is very good. So, what happened was, I've been looking on my bookshelf. I'm waiting for some more inspiration. I've got many chess books. And I thought what I'd do is I would move along the shelf. I've done a couple of columns about Irving and Kramer, the middle game. Then I did something on Suetin's book on the middle game. And I was moving along that shelf of middle game books, and my eye happened to move up a shelf. And I lit upon Irving Chernev's book, which is called The 1000 Best Short Games of Chess. Well, I mean, there is a book, 500 Master Games of Chess. I'm trying to remember who it's by. I know it's got a blue cover in the Dover edition I've got. And that's sort of just about a reasonable number to have some annotations in a big thick book. But 1000 is just too many, and so the games are short, the annotations are very minimal, but there's enormous quantities of blood. There is an enormous quantity of blood. And so I started looking through this, and I found, well, I found some fun games. I mean, they're not going to greatly improve your chess, probably, though in places they may, but they're mostly just about one of the players playing like a complete drain and then bish bash bosh. Before that, I was looking. I've been watching Bucharest, of course, and I streamed one day as well. But and I just noticed this position, which is Wesley So against Richard Rapport. It's a theoretical position actually, and it's been played a number of times. Let's get it the right way round as well. And the thing is, well, what do you do about the bishop? You could recapture with the queen or the rook and d4. Actually, both are bad. If the rook, then e5 is very good for black. If you do it with the queen, then rook d8 wins immediately, because there's a threat of bishop h2 check and also a threat of bishop e7. So queen d4, rook d8, you can actually resign at that point, which is a bit sad, but there we are. So you play bishop d3, and that's sort of obvious anyway that you want to take aim at the black king. And the question is, do you even consider d takes e3? Well, I don't think an experienced player really would consider it, because it's such a dangerous move. It leads to such trouble. And I'll show you some lines. The Rapport played e5, which is an excellent move. So d takes e3, bishop takes, bishop e7, bishop g5. I looked at h6, which can lead to some absolute horror. You're trying to get your queen into the defence, but the best way to do this now is this move. Check, and then a nice move, but not a difficult move really in the scheme of things, rook d8. Now queen takes g5, so if bishop takes d8, you go bishop h7 check, king to there, queen takes rook mate, and if you go rook takes d8, you play bishop f7 mate. So after rook d8, queen g5, you can play queen f2 check if you want to, but it doesn't help at all. Queen f2 check, king to there. You could also possibly play queen h2 check, but that also isn't going to help very much. Queen h2, queen takes, something takes, rook takes, queen to there, and you're soon going to give mate. It's a disaster. So that's probably even better than bishop f7 actually. So and this is the end of the game. I mean, actually h5 is a better move, which the computer points out. I always miss that move as a defence, but it is a good one sometimes. Rook to here, and one line goes b4 now. Queen b4, bishop f6, you just win a piece. because queen takes queen loses. And queen takes h4, bishop takes h4, yeah. So gf6, queen takes pawn, f5, and the simplest is rook to there, queen to there, rook to there, check. Pawn takes rook, queen to there, checkmate. Not difficult, just blood on the board. So, and there is another move actually as well. There's also the best move actually to try after d takes e3. Sorry, I've lost this. Is rook d8 actually is the best move. Rook a c1, queen b6. And the engine now goes bishop b3, queen takes b2, bishop h7 check, king here. And says, well, big advantage, big attack. And okay, well, I haven't proved this is winning, but it's certainly very, very scary. I guess you can probably play just bishop back now and threaten queen h8 check or something. I haven't proved this, but I mean, I know that it's a huge, huge attack. There are other ways to do it as well. What Rapport did, he played a new move. He played e5 in this position. Bishop d3, he played e5, which is a very interesting move. Basically trying to diffuse the position immediately. He took about a quarter of an hour, so probably he was actually thinking about it. Of course, he doesn't recapture because then bishop g5 he'd be mated up a tree, but he plays e4. And what he's achieved is to give up one pawn to get rid of white's important attacking bishop. And now if he ever can play bishop, exchange the dark squared bishop for the knight, then there'll be opposite bishops. And with such an active position, a4 may not help white either, then he's got very good chances. The engine shows the only way to play this position for advantage, which is this excellent move. And the point is that if something like f6, you can play either g4, or you can play takes, knight to there. And you retain some chances. It's not very fantastic, but, you know, probably you just play rook d8 here, I'm guessing. And the game continues, and you can go rook d8 and then move your bishop. You don't care if he takes the bishop at all, and it should be a draw, but white might get some slight advantage on a good day with a following wind, if he's lucky, etc., etc., but very little. What actually happened was he played slightly worse. Knight e5, queen to there. Queen to there, the important thing, this stops knight g5 being so dangerous. So did this. Of course you don't exchange the dark squared bishops, because then you'd have a knight left on the board, and that would give white real hope. Because in positions where you're a pawn up, having a knight is always a good thing, really. Gives you real chances. I mean, you know, I don't know how good it is, but you could certainly think about it. Think about trying to put the knight in e3 and then playing chess. And it would be a little bit dangerous. Probably not that dangerous, but I mean it would be certainly something you could try to play. So he just took and went there, and a little bit later it ended as a draw, because this position was opposite bishops. If the d pawn was an e4, then white would have a significant advantage, but here with a very weak d pawn, nothing's really happening. And what actually happened was he went there, which is a good move to make the pawn advance, and then goes back again. And now the king is able to stomp up the board, gets to e6 in time. Black is completely coordinated. The bishop defends the whole queen side. The d pawn isn't far enough away from the king side to be much of a problem. And they played a few more moves. That's a good move, which I didn't actually notice. I was thinking is takes, king b6, king d7, king takes pawn, followed by h5. Is that dangerous? It's not actually, but this is a good move. So I wondered if takes here must go there to stop the king going to c7. King takes pawn, bishop to there. Now you must go h5 to stop black playing g6. And this is a draw, but it's not that great. I mean, you have to... I mean, actually, the white hasn't got very much to do, actually, but still. You have to be a little bit careful, maybe. When he moves his bishop, we're going to play king takes pawn, though. That's the problem. So we can actually go don't know if we can go f5, f4, or we can probably do anything we like. We can go here for the moment. Bishop to there, bishop to there, pawn to there. Sorry, bishop to bishop to there, then we take, so we have to go this way. Let's promote variation. Promote variation. Bishop to here, pawn to here, bishop to here, bishop to here. King takes pawn. Try bishop takes pawn now. Is that dangerous or not? It might lose, of course, on a bad day, but it also might win. I don't know. Does that win or does that lose? If I can't do that, then I've got nothing to do at all. Bishop takes pawn takes h6, king over b5 takes. I think it probably loses, doesn't it? Actually, let me ask the engine. I can't be bothered to do this. No, it loses. Okay, sorry, so I can't do that. Bishop takes f6 question mark. Actually loses. I mean, I can try. I can also try to go check. Check. New main line here, here. Bishop. Bishop. Take. Take. And now I have to be a little bit careful, but I think this is still completely drawn. I can go there probably. Am I in any danger at this point? I don't think so. Let me just check. I mean, it's easier to check. Equals, yeah, it's equal. You can see the assessment's 1.31. Actually, it's flat, which means it's equal. But much better just to go king d7 here, king c8. Now all white can do is to play here before you take the pawn, and now you just bring the king over to the king side, and nothing happens at all. And they agree to draw because the king defends the king side, the bishop defends the queen side. So that was quite interesting, and it was a good piece of damage limitation. So now we move on to the games I've chosen from the great book of splatting, and there are 8 of these. Yeah. All between number 1 and number 150 of the 1,000. I gave up at that point, but I might go back to it. This is a game. It's an execrable game. Here he played f5. And I pointed out that Jonathan Mestel, actually, after d4, he played f5 in a World Junior twice. I think this was Bob Wade's idea. He played it first, I think, against Paul van der Sterren and beat him, because although it's a crap, I mean, it doesn't work, but it's something you can fight with. You could certainly fight with before there were computers. And somebody told him, oh, this loses, doesn't it? So Jonathan played it against him as well. It was against, is he Paul Normie? I think he's Paul. And Jonathan beat him in that as well. So I've given those games. Anyway, this game, if you take on e4, there's knight e5. And then the appalling move, bishop d7. Of course, you must play knight c6. It's absolutely obvious you have to play knight c6. Whether it works or not, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the move you play, because it's going to get a piece into the game. This loses a tempo. So apparently this game continued like this, leading to this position, and now white can deliver checkmate with checks in quite a pretty way. He goes check, queen takes, if pawn takes, then knight to there is already checkmate. I'm giving this an exclam, check here. I'm not sure if f4 works. f4 was my first thought as well. It might do, but it's a bit complicated. You're gonna go f4, king up, bishop b3, king c4. I guess you probably are giving mate, actually. Let's have a look. I mean, he actually mates in 2 moves with knight f3, but just look at this. Here, 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 here. Now, check. Probably are, aren't we? Here, check. Here. I'm not sure really. Here, here, b4. Mate this is working, maybe not. I think maybe what you can do actually is you can play takes, 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 and then king d2, and I think then you do mate. As far as I can see, it's mate in a couple of moves. Is that right? Oh, great engine, that is mate in 2 or 3 moves. Yes, mate next move, actually. Okay, so that would have been very stupid, though it does lead to mate, but knight f3 check, king takes pawn, knight c3 checkmate. And I say, a very pretty final position at the end of an execrable game, and it is really rather awful. There we are. That was the first one. That was number 15, I believe, in the Chernev. Yeah. Then we got the famous game Reti Tartakova. This is, we'll put this into replay training. Let's go back. This is a famous game. This is, I believe, a friendly game played between these two great players in Vienna. I don't think it was a real game. Queen d3 played, I mean, you'd probably take normally. e5 question mark is a bit too clever. Reti played quite, well, e4 openings were, I don't know if he hadn't even yet formulated knight f3 and everything. Anyway, white now castles and black plays knight takes knight, and white to play and win. And if you haven't seen this, have a little think, see if you can find out how white delivers bish, bash and bosh. Precisely that, actually, mate in 3. So the solution is check, double check. If you go, do I not even have king e8 as a variation? I may do. I don't even have this as a variation. Rook to there, checkmate. And the main line goes king to there, bishop d8, mate. Which is very pretty, really. And this is a decent miniature. This is something you can imagine happening in a cafe. And I don't know, it's Vienna, isn't it? What did they have? Did they have gold florins or something at the time? I don't know what the Austrian currency was in 1910. Maybe Austrian marks or something? I ought to know, but I don't. Anyway, perhaps some gold coins appeared on the board if he's lucky, if he was lucky, Reti. Right, next one. This was in Milwaukee. What happened was, annoyingly, and I'm going to put this in replay training as well, I put this into my ChessBase file, which is a PGN, because I'm sending it to ChessBase, it's easiest. And then I found that I'd made all the games in the rest of the database from Milwaukee, because it had retained the place. So I had to put them back into a CBH file, edit them, because you can't edit the place in a PGN file, and put them back again. So now it doesn't say Milwaukee, as you can say. Well, this says Milwaukee, but the rest don't. This is the wing gambit. d5 is the normal move, and I pointed out the very famous game. This is the famous game, Cameron Shirazi. Cameron Shirazi is an Iranian, or formerly Iranian grandmaster, quite a good player, really. Strong player, who's lived in Paris for many years, I believe. I think he still lives in Paris. Very nice man, but he was in the USA at one stage, and he played in the US Championship and got something like 1 out of 15 or something. And this was one of them. And of course he resigned here against Jack Peters. Poor chap. This was about the 14th or 15th or something, and he was beyond pain at that point. Anyway, that's an even shorter. But this guy played knight c6 in this game, which is, if you're going to do this, you need to play knight b4. He played knight f6. What is he doing? b5. e5. Oh, very clever. So if pawn takes knight, there's queen e5 check. I mean, there's queen e5 check. So I think that's probably a mistake. Tremendously clever. I think this is a mistake, isn't it? I haven't completely proved it. Queen e5 check. I'm just wondering if there's some clever trick. I don't think so. So he went d4, as you might notice, having noticed the queen e5 check motif. Guy went here, which is also a mistake. Right, this is white to play and win. And the first move is quite easy, really. It's b6. Queen to there is the best you can do. Rook takes, got to take, queen checks. And here the thing is, because the pawn is such a monster, you can actually play not the move you might expect, but the excellent move knight c3. Now, for knight c6, you play pawn equals queen or pawn equals rook. I think I put a rook on the board, being actually it's better to put a queen. Excuse me. Knight c6. No, I'm going to play, because actually it can live, can't it? So let's have a queen. Queen, and let us delete variation, because I was doing a Nakamura. So if knight c6, pawn equals queen, queen takes c3 check, bishop d2. And if there was only a rook, you could play queen d4, but here it's a queen, so it's even worse. I mean, if it was only a rook, then you would only be a rook up, and here you're a queen up. So we have to go queen takes a8, promote variation, and we'll play knight takes knight. But the other line goes knight c3, pawn takes knight equals queen, check, bishop d2, queen d8 is forced, king takes knight, and a body count reveals that white is a piece up, and black resigned. Now there's a question, where did black actually resign? Given the execrable way he's played, I do not believe for a moment that he resigned after b6. It just doesn't seem like a plausible story to me. To resign after b6, you need to be quite a strong player, and you need to trust your opponent to play knight c3. So I think there's no way on earth, unless he didn't see he could play queen d8, of course. That is possible, that he didn't see that queen d8 is legal and queen a5. So I suppose and I'm just going to, unless of course queen d8 was legal. Okay, just occurred to me that actually he may have been so weak he didn't see queen d8. I mean, it's not so weak, but I mean, you know, he didn't see queen d8 and therefore resigned at once. Okay, next one. This is a guy called Verlinsky. Now, who is he? Because I looked him up. I don't know who Kusakov was, but Verlinsky was actually the Soviet champion in 1929, I discovered. I realised he was a strong player. He was actually an IM. He didn't become a grandmaster. What was his name? Let's find out. Let's look up Verlinsky chess. I don't care about. I assume it's the right Verlinsky. He was Boris Verlinsky. Okay, so we'll do that. Right, and this is a game. Guy played 2c3. I mean, nowadays they normally go knight f3, knight c6, c3 to play the Ponziani. And now Mark Hedman plays this, and if queen a4, which is supposed to be clever, then there is the move f6. I've seen Mark play this a couple of times, and apparently this is quite a good line for black. I don't know it myself, but it's supposed to be, I believe. Now, let's go back. What actually happened was the guy went c3, and you could play d5, knight e7, c4 here. f3, and you've got a reasonable position. You have to watch out a little bit after knight g6. You're going to play bishop e3 to stop knight e4 and queen h4 check. We'll play a couple more moves, knight to there, bishop to there. And this is a playable position. It's actually, I mean, there's a line, the knight's tango, which goes d4, knight f6, c4, knight c6. And you're possibly a tempo down on that, but fair enough, it's all right for white. I hope I haven't lost any annotations. I have not, though, because sometimes you do. Okay, so what actually happened was he played bishop g5, which is a bad move. Engine says d5 is a good move, but this is what happened. It's not a great idea. Oh no, now you should play knight e4 with a very good game for black. He took on c3. Now, sensible move is knight c3, and there is a line that goes knight c3, queen e7, queen e2, knight d4, pawn takes knight. And this is very disastrous for black. You can swap queens or not swap queens first. And now there is either knight d5, which after c6 you're going to win the rook, or you can just go knight f3 and take his knight. c6, rook takes knight, d5, and this is probably plus minus. I'll ask Houdini what it thinks. I think it'll say +2. There's 1 + 1, 1.5. So even Houdini, who is a much more moderate chap than Stockfish, says plus minus. But the guy went e takes f6, which was not a good idea. Pawn takes pawn, queen e2 check. So what does black play in this position is the question. And there's sort of bishop e7 is reasonable. And when you actually have to go queen takes b2, bishop takes pawn, knight c3, that's a reasonable position. But white is a piece up for some compensation. But black has a very strong move here. So queen e7, which is lovely. I should point out that bishop e7, queen takes pawn. So pawn takes question mark, loses to queen takes pawn. So bishop b7, he probably thought about this. Queen takes b2, bishop takes pawn, knight c3, and black's got some compensation here with the diagonal. I imagine it's winning for white because he's a piece up, but he's got... Let me ask an assessment from my learned friend. My learned friend says, okay, let's say unclear. But he played queen e7, which is a beautiful move. I think I'll give it 2 exclams. It's very pretty. This is a famous example as well. I've seen this before. Where are my 2 exclams there? Pawn takes queen, bishop g7. And the pawn, when it takes the rook, the difference is going to be 14. Well, you can play queen takes pawn, in which case you are... Actually, you can play queen takes pawn and be the exchange down. Take back. Bishop g7, queen b2, bishop b2, knight f3, bishop takes rook. And... Okay, now let's try knight a3. It's a better move. Bishop takes a3. That is a better move. And in that one, you are going to be 3 pawns up. Bishop a3. Okay. But actually he resigned here. If you don't take the pawn, then when you play pawn takes rook, that'll be a difference of 14 points. You'll lose 1 pawn, you'll get an extra queen, which is either 9 or 10, maybe it's only 13, and you'll take a rook. So that was quite a pretty game. Queen e7 is a pretty move. Next one, we'll go back to here. Do I have a... I do have this. Is this game. This is actually in some ways a more interesting game. De Vries was a reasonably strong Dutch player, I think, in the 1930s. This seems to be. I thought he. So pawn takes pawn. I'm not sure what he does. He doesn't play knight takes pawn. Maybe he just plays d6. Is d? Let's ask. I haven't asked. Is d takes e5 possible here, or is it 2? Fe5. Reference. What do they do? Bishop g1 they play, do they? Let me ask Stockfish actually, because I think I need a decent tactician for this. Good tactician. Yeah, d6 looks like a good move. Compensation. Right, let's go to there. The guy actually played knight f3, which is reasonable. d6. Now he played f5. I'm going to turn, I'm sorry, I'll turn off the great engine. f5 is, takes space, but it's too early. It stabilizes the center. And okay, it's playable. Also, you could play knight a4 and try to chase the bishop. But f5 is asking for trouble because it's too soon. You're not developed properly as white. He went here. And now he played a very bad move, actually. He played h3. I think he probably, I don't know if he can play bishop c4, but he's already, it's already dangerous due to the threat of knight g4. I don't know what happens after bishop c4 or bishop b5. I'll ask in a minute. What happened was h3. So the question is, white's just played h3, which has lost another tempo. He thinks he's all right. I mean, there's even knight h5 isn't stupid. But what should black do against a flank attack? White's wasted 2 tempi with f5 and h3, so black plays the excellent move d5. Now, d3, you go bishop b4, bishop d2 takes. Knight takes, you just take an f5. Pawn takes, takes. Knight to there. To there. Bishop takes pawn. I assume bishop b5 check, you can just play king e7. And you're just a pawn up for absolutely nothing. And it's just a bad position. It's not completely lost, but you got excellent losing chances. So what he actually did, he played the glorious move knight e5, hoping to do something clever with knight e5 d4. And whether that works, it would go bishop b4, pawn takes knight, knight takes pawn, which may or may not be playable. I don't know. But knight e4 is a much better move. If knight e5, d4, I guess bishop b4, pawn takes, knight takes. I don't know how this is. Maybe there's some decentish move. Maybe queen f3 or something. I'm guessing queen f3 might be playable-ish. No, this is winning as well, actually. Is apparently also minus plus. Okay. I couldn't tell immediately. I knew it wasn't very good for white. But what happened was that your man, notation, replay training, didn't do that. He played knight e4, which threatened to go queen h4 check. If knight takes knight, you have queen h4 check, which wins. And the guy played knight f3. And now it's black to play and win. And it was not much fun for white. Pretty move, but I mean, okay, white has absolutely asked for trouble. Splat. 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 And I said this is a slightly more interesting game. Despite its shortness, this game has rather more interesting chess content than some of the others I've given today, which are really purely aesthetic. White tried to set up a clamp and then compounded his error. God, you can see I'm sorry, my typing as usual is so absolutely awful. Attempting to keep control, VP on OM, troll, good heavens. CON, troll is better, is it not? Sorry. Control. But his loss of tempi in a still fluid position led to utter disaster. Possibly even utter disaster rather than utero disaster or something. Okay. My apologies. Alto. So that was quite an interesting game. Now the next one is a game, I actually gave this game, I was doing a column on April the 1st, but I'm not sure what for. I can't find it out. And I used this game. It was supposed to be a review of a book called The Chess Players. I'll show you a little bit of it. I'll show you at least a taster of the Chess Players Almanac. In the Chess Player's Almanac, Zodiac €35, a sequel to his highly erudite and much acclaimed Chinese horoscopes of the leading shogi players. Also Zodiac €25, expatriate Hungarian Professor Attila Letosi applies his ever-perceptive mind to the fascinating question of chess players' star signs. That's how it starts anyway. And basically, eventually I gave a game, which was this game. I didn't know it was Steiner against whoever this guy is, Stianci. I should check. I will check, in fact, before I actually send this off, that I've got the spelling of Stianci right. And I said that Boris, I called it An Parofilo against Boris Shutka. Shutka is a Russian word which means a joke. Parofilo you can work out if you think about it. I called him Antonio Parofilo. And I said that Boris Shutka was a Piscean, a fish, which he was, and said something about the bullishly equine exploits, because he was a Taurian, of Master Parofilo. And this is the game. I enjoyed this. I think I find this much funnier than anybody else on earth, sadly. E5 is a decent move, actually, here. Miss knight d5, already disaster. The engine gives this splendid idea of rook a7, and if knight b6, knight to there takes rook a8. Bloody engines. Anyway, he went king d8, this guy. Bishop d2. Knight d7 did not improve matters. Check here, checkmate. So that was actually... Well, who was L. Steiner? I've forgotten what his first name was. Was he Laszlo or somebody? I don't know who L. Steiner was. I ought to. He was quite a strong player, I know. Lajos Steiner, sorry. So he was actually Hungarian. Oh, that's good, given that given the silliness. Lajos Steiner against Stianci. Okay, and I will actually correct that before I send it off. Check the name anyway. And the final one, final two more. There's Nimzovich against Amateur, which is frankly an awful game, but has an amusing end. I've seen this before. I'm not even going to ask you to. Knight e4, it's a simultaneous display. d5 wins a piece because of bishop d3. Black fights on. Maybe he thought even he was winning a piece back. You never know. And here Nimzovich, I mean, you know, there are lots of good moves. He couldn't resist playing bishop e2, nor could I. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Check. Quite a big check, actually. Double checkmate. There are several better knaves, so I think we'll correct that to move, shall we? MOV, yes. How amazing. Okay, and that's that one. And just one more, which is this game. Again, it's extraordinarily awful opening. That's an awful move, knight f4. Now just bishop d3 followed by bishop takes knight and queen d3 would lead to utter horror for black, actually, because I'm playing knight to f3 to g5. Absolutely foul position. I think bishop d3. If I ask its Sublime Majesty Stockfish, I think it'll say +3 already, probably. I haven't asked it yet. Yeah, it's +3. d6. Queen c2, queen d7. Is that the best you can do? This is the best he's managed, is it? Knight f3. Queen f5. Queen g3 is even better than taking, is it? Queen takes. Knight c3. Okay. So you're a pawn up with the black position, complete wreck. Is the least bad Stockfish. Fish confined for black. Okay, Okay, what actually happened was this. He played Queen G6. It's a pretty move. But yeah, Queen E7. There was a way to play this actually. Knight H6 was best. Queen E4, and the game continues because you can't play Bishop takes Knight because of Bishop B4 check. So this would have been some sort of defence. The guy went Queen to there, Bishop to there. I actually saw this diagram in the book, and I was thinking is Rook H5 a move? But actually, Rook H5, Queen H5, Queen B4 check, Knight C3, Queen takes pawn, Rook C1 really isn't an option. I thought it might give some chances, but it doesn't seem to really. Okay, just a thought occurred to me. In fact, Rook G8 is the best move here. Rook G8 is the best one, because now you are threatening to take the queen, and this gives some sort of chances. I don't know if there's I mean, obviously you're going to be better whatever you do, I'm not sure. Queen up, presumably we can go queen takes bishop, bishop takes queen, go pawn takes queen, and let's do a body count. Bishop takes bishop, pawn takes bishop. Not so clear actually, is it? Let me ask Houdini now. It says queen f5 is the best move, which I'd missed actually. Sorry, being stupid. Queen b4 check it suggests. Queen b4 check, bishop d2, take, and white's better, but the game continues. Doesn't like knight c3 actually. Okay. I don't know. I thought knight c3. Okay, knight d2. Yeah, all right. Just a position. But actually, what happened is your man took the queen, which was not very bright. Bishop takes check, king to here, and now I suppose he expected bishop takes queen, knight takes, rook takes, knight takes, but rook takes rook, exclam. I should give bishop takes check, question mark, knight takes, which is what he's expecting, obviously. Rook takes rook, knight takes bishop, equals plus. But rook takes rook is much better, since after queen takes bishop, there is rook takes bishop check, king to there, rook to there, checkmate. So, I hope you've enjoyed these examples of early bloodshed. I certainly did. As I said in the column, I basically looked through looking at the pictures, or as we technically call them, diagrams. I certainly didn't try to play through all 150 of the first 150. But I thought these were quite fun. And this game, actually, the analysis is quite interesting. Rook G8 is quite an interesting move to defend. Excuse me. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to stop now, and I will see you now. Today, this will be going out on the 15th. I'm writing on the 13th. So I will see you actually in 3 weeks, on the 5th of June. Right. Okay. That's it.